How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, welcome back to another video. So today, instead of diving into one of the specific professions and looking at what that has to offer, I want to spend a few minutes today focusing on concentration. This new resource, this new currency that crafters are going to be dealing with that you may have spotted in the top corner here and is referenced over in your crafting details panel as well. I'll spend a few minutes talking about concentration and showcasing just how I think this might be perceived by the player base and how it's actually turning out to be quite a clever little system. I have had my concerns about concentration. Some of those concerns being that, well, if it recharges too fast, it doesn't mean anything in the first place. And we also only a couple of weeks ago got a bit of an update from Blizzard in the form of a blue post stating what their sort of design goal was. And they stated just this. They stated that the design philosophy for crafting difficulty in the War Within is that a well-owned crafter who is fully specialized, equipped with the best crafting tools and using quality 3 reagents can guarantee maximum quality on every craft, with a few targeted exceptions on certain non-equipment crafts. Concentration is intended to offset the shortcomings in any of these variables. So they're determining your crafting tools as a variable, your spec trees as a variable, and presumably also the skill you have in the profession as a variable as well. Concentration can kind of fill the gaps, right? If you want to be making things at the top quality, you haven't quite got all your, or you haven't quite got everything figured out and sorted just yet. This process, of course, is by design meant to take some time to achieve anyway. You can throw some concentration into the mix and you can alleviate the problem at a single button press and say, well, hey, I'll use my concentration instead. It depletes when you use it. You can store up to 500 of it and it slowly recharges. That's the fundamentals of concentration in its initial implementation. Now, I was quite concerned. I mentioned a minute ago that I had my concerns about this, that, well, if we can guarantee everything at top quality eventually anyway, well, kind of what becomes the long-term value of concentration? And I wasn't looking far enough into this to really find the solution. And it jumped on me a couple of days ago, and I wanted to share it with you guys here today. And this is what makes concentration actually a really clever system. Because everybody wants to be able to become a really skilled crafter and guarantee stuff, right? If you're making the top quality gear for people, you want to go out there and you're making top quality stuff. You want to make sure that when you're using top quality components, boom, no randomness, no silly inspiration procs, no need to like recraft things 3 or 4 times to make something for somebody. Somebody comes along and wants something, you should be able to tell them, I have the skill to make this at quality 5. Send your order in, give me the mats, boom, job done, right? Easy peasy. That's what everybody wants. And now that that's available, I think that's a really strong position to be in as a crafter. It makes the purchasing of gear more simplistic, more straightforward. It makes selling that gear more simplistic, more straightforward. Generally, positive. But of course, you can quickly come to the conclusion, well, that means this player who can guarantee these can just guarantee these all day long. Just bang them out. They're just flying out the doors, right? They now have no limitations, no restrictions on being able to craft these things as many times as they want. And I saw that knee-jerk reaction. I saw that as quite a downside to the system. I saw it as, well, that just puts us back in the same position where somebody can just guarantee everything first time, no problems. But you might have noticed one very specific thing they stated is that they want you to be using quality 3 materials. There's an option here for the small time goblins, and this is why I think concentration is really clever. There's an option here for the small time goblins who aren't looking to stand around crafting all day long, who aren't looking at crafting gear for people all day long. Let's even go as far as to say for the people who aren't even looking to craft gear via work orders. Let's look at people who are just looking to craft reagents to sell on the auction house. The scenario here is exactly the same. Yes, you can guarantee practically everything at top quality, but it's going to require the most expensive materials. Now, what does this mean? This means your crafting cost is more. So we actually find ourselves 2 options here. we have two options, and we're going to use paint to just sort of whiteboard this a little bit. We have two options. We have the guy that's going to come in and is going to do max everything. Max everything, max his profession, max his tools, he's going to use Q3 materials all day long. And he's going to sit there and he'll craft, I don't know, 1,000 potions or something. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. 1,000 things to then go sell on the auction house. He guarantees every single one of those at Q3. And he, devotes his time to just sell. That's all he wants to do. Just sell everything, craft a bunch of stuff, sell a bunch of stuff. Let's look at it from an actual production cost for this. He's not using any concentration, but he's using quality 3 materials. And if you're using quality 3 materials, you might have a slightly higher crafting cost than other people. I'll explain how and where those other people come from in a second. Let's just assume this first guy has 100 gold as a crafting cost, which to make them at Q3 and to sell all day long, he probably needs to sell them at the very least for 110 gold for it to be even worth him thinking about doing it. 110, 120, 130 gold a piece would be really nice. Now what happens in option B then? This is a scenario which we'd all like to try and do. We'd like to open our profession, see something's profitable, craft a bunch of it and sell it. Great. But there's the option for the small-time goblins out there. There's the more casual crafters, and this is what I think will spread the love a little bit more and allow more people to see a small amount of success from their professions, which I think is really important. Player B has not quite min-maxed everything yet. They've got like 75% max, but they're choosing to use concentration and Q2 materials. Using some concentration and only Q2 materials. This means their material cost could, in theory, be much cheaper, because we already know that the higher the quality of the materials, the more likely they are to be more expensive. Let's say this dude now has a crafting cost of only 75 gold. But because he's using concentration, he can't hit the button all day long, right? He can only press the button so many times. Let's say this dude is only able to press the button like 100 times. He can make 100 of something, and then his concentration is going to have been completely depleted. He's going to run out of concentration. That's going to be his limit for the day. This basically means for a small amount of supply, he can fulfill a small amount of the demand on the server for those potions, but he can only supply 100 of them at this cheaper price. He has a big advantage on his hands, though. The big advantage he has, because he used his concentration, he's got a much cheaper crafting cost, theoretically meaning he can sell his very quickly at a slight discount. Now, I don't want to turn this into a conversation about whether you should undercut or whether you should undercut. The point is irrelevant for the topic of this conversation. He could come in and he could post his at 109 gold. He could post his at 109 gold, or if he was really clever and really wanted to shift his stock super fast, he'd actually post his at 99 gold. 99 gold would kind of be the optimum. Why? Well, it's because this player then can't compete with him. This player is going to sell the majority and is in it for the long game. He's going to be the one that's sitting there cancel scanning all day long. He has a higher crafting cost, but he has a much higher limit to what he can sell every day. This player is still going to make a bunch of gold. There's no denying. As long as they can sell some of their stock, they'll be fine. But every time option B, every time the more casual crafter comes along, they can inject a small amount of supply at a slightly cheaper crafting cost. Once their 100 stock sells through, then this guy can go back to selling everything. But this player is still making, as you can see here, like 24 gold profit per. Meaning it starts to be worthwhile for this player to do it, right? These numbers are rough. These are just sort of napkin math figures here, but it goes to show this is what concentration is going to allow people to do. It's going to allow people to come in and at small quantities say, well, you know what? Instead of using these high expensive quality 3s, I'm going to use the slightly cheaper quality 2s. And, well, I'm going to have to throw some concentration at it. I can only craft like a small amount of these, but of course my crafting cost was much, much less. This kind of discount, should we say, for your first 10, 15, 20, however many crafts it is a day, I think is going to work really well for spreading out the amount of people that can see success with their professions, whilst not stepping on the toes too much of those sort of, should we say, auction house and goblin lifers out there. For the players who want to just play with this all day, they want to have all of their professions, they want to get all of their alts up and running. I think it's going to create a much fairer, if you can use the term in a video game, a fairer scenario for people to be able to craft things and sell things, and I think it's quite smart. I should add, there is technically there is technically option C to this. Option C is, of course, that when 500 alchemists all come along, creating their 100 each, that they themselves can supply the entire demand for that given item, and so this player then ceases to ever be able to sell any of his stuff at this scenario. That's the long-term eventuality. One thing I've always learned from this game is that supply of something will always eventually outstrip the demand by quite some way, because crafters can still craft things, and we already know that people are planning to set up armies of 50 alchemists to make, you know, blasphemites on the daily and whatever. So there is technically an option C, but I'm sort of more focusing for the first patch of the expansion, whereas I think option A will be for those who want to just sort of, they will want to strive to get to the point where they can max things out. They can guarantee their top quality crafts for people, whether they're crafting gear or whether they're crafting intermediate items to sell. But the downside, the kiss curse effect of this, is that they are going to have a slightly higher crafting cost for whilst they do this. Somebody can come in and they can produce a small amount of product, supply a small amount of the demand out there at a discounted rate, but then they're done for the day. I think it's quite clever. I think it's quite, hopefully it works in practice. What we have learned about World of Warcraft quite a lot over the years is that how things look on paper and how they actually end up when they get implemented in the game can sometimes be two different things. But I wanted to talk about that for a few minutes today. I wanted to showcase how some of my views on concentration, even in the first few weeks of this beta being available to us, has slightly shifted, has slightly changed. I still think they need to be careful with how much concentration we get, and more importantly, how fast it recharges. I still think they're two important things to consider. I'm still of the opinion it recharges too quickly. I would much prefer a slower recharge on this, as it gives players a little bit more wiggle room. At the moment, the rate in which it's recharging, it kind of means that if you don't log on for a day, it might cap. And having it capped is the worst case scenario for many players, because then you're just losing free concentration, which could be used to make some discounted products. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on that. Either use the comment section down below or jump into the Discord. The Discord's getting nice and active again as we're ramping up towards a new expansion launch and people are sharing their findings from the beta. So jump into the Discord, come say hi. Give the video a like if you enjoyed this, boys and girls. Consider subscribing if you're new around here. There is a bunch of new faces I've noticed. We've just crossed the 20k mark, so thank you for that. Subscribe if you are new around here and are enjoying the content. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.